The Truth, an uncomfortable book about relationships by Neil Strauss. Ever wonder why love can feel like the most beautiful thing one moment and the most painful the next? Why the person who makes your heart soar can also make it shatter? Why we sometimes sabotage the very relationships we claim to cherish most? Let me tell you about a guy who thought he'd cracked the code on relationships. Neil Strauss, best-selling author of The Game, became world famous for teaching men how to seduce anyone. He could walk into any room and leave with any woman he wanted. And he did, over and over again. But when he finally met someone he actually loved, a woman named Ingrid, he did the one thing that would tear it all apart. He cheated on her. Picture this. Ingrid's on the floor of their guest house, stuffing clothes into an overstuffed suitcase, her face lit up with pure excitement. "I'm so excited, babe," she tells him. She has no clue that just 12 hours earlier, he'd been with one of her friends. He'd showered twice, checked his car for stray hairs, wiped down every surface. The only thing he couldn't clean was his guilty conscience. "So how was last night?" she asks innocently. He lies, a smooth, practiced lie about a frustrating work meeting, and as he watches her smile at him with complete trust, he feels something inside him crack open. He's living two lives, and the weight of it is crushing him. This moment kicks off one of the most brutally honest explorations of modern relationships you'll ever encounter. This isn't just another self-help book about communication or keeping the spark alive. This is about a man who tears his entire life apart to answer one haunting question. Can you really love just one person for the rest of your life? And if you can, how the hell do you actually do it? Over the next little while, we're diving deep into Neil's wild journey. We're talking psychiatric hospitals for sex addiction, free love communes, actual harems, swinger parties in Vegas, and conversations with everyone from scientists to spiritual gurus, each claiming to have the answer to lasting love. But here's the real twist. The biggest obstacle to finding love isn't out there somewhere. It's inside you. This is a story about destroying everything you thought you knew about yourself to discover what's actually real. It's about learning that every belief you've clung to about love might be completely wrong. So buckle up, this is going to get uncomfortable. Our story doesn't start with triumph. It starts with complete collapse. Neil Strauss, the guy who literally wrote the book on picking up women, is sitting on a plane headed to a psychiatric hospital. No phone, no laptop. They're not allowed where he's going. All he has are his own spinning thoughts and an obsessive mental catalog of every attractive woman on the flight. His brain automatically calculates approach angles, imagines conversations, fantasizes about encounters that will never happen. Why is he flying to rehab? Because he cheated on Ingrid, the one woman who, after years of meaningless hookups, made him feel something real. It happened 6 months earlier. He told Ingrid he had a late meeting with Marilyn Manson. Total lie. He met up with one of her friends, and they had sex in a church parking lot. Then he went home, scrubbed away the evidence, and the next morning helped Ingrid pack for a trip to Chicago, where she'd meet his family for her birthday. The lie sat between them like poison. He loved her, or thought he did, but can you really love someone you're actively betraying? This question ate at him. He looked at his married friends and saw quiet desperation everywhere. Cheating, misery, or at best, resigned acceptance. Marriage itself seemed broken. Maybe, he thought, it wasn't just him. Maybe the whole system was flawed. His journey didn't start by choice. It was forced on him. A few months after that first betrayal, everything exploded. While Neil was on a business trip, Ingrid got an email from Juliet, the friend he'd slept with. A detailed confession. "We had sex in his car, in my bed, and in my shower." Neil's carefully constructed world imploded. Ingrid's trust was destroyed. Friends turned on him. He was getting death threats. Finally, in complete despair, he listened to his friend Rick Rubin, the legendary music producer. Rick had told him months earlier, "You're an addict. You use sex like a drug to fill a hole inside you. And that hole is your self-esteem." Rick had urged him to go to rehab, but Neil had refused. Now, with his life in ruins, he had nowhere else to turn. He ends up at a level 1 psychiatric hospital, the kind of place for people literally on the verge of drinking or drugging themselves to death. His crime? Cheating on his girlfriend. He feels like a fraud. Inside, it's dehumanizing. They confiscate his books, take his nail clippers and razor, put him on suicide watch, hand him a pager to wear constantly. A dead-eyed nurse asks if he's a sex addict. If you're cheating on your relationship, visiting porn sites or masturbating, she says flatly, that's sex addiction. He gets a red name tag. Red is for sex addicts. It's his scarlet letter, marking him as a predator, the lowest of the low. While other addicts harm themselves, he's there because he sought out others' bodies. His roommate is Adam, an all-American guy with a wife and 2 kids. Perfect life, right? Wrong. He's there for the same reason as everyone else. He got caught. His wife had become cold and distant, and he found passion in an affair. He didn't want to leave his family, but he couldn't deny feeling truly alive with the other woman. In his first 12-step meeting for Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Neil sits in a circle of broken men. One guy, looking like a sad Santa, confesses to secret trips to Tijuana prostitutes and an STD he hasn't told his wife about yet. Another man, Charles, is a, quote, codependent depressive sex addict who relapsed after 10 years of sobriety. These are stories drenched in shame, regret, and the terror of being discovered. When it's Neil's turn, he admits, I'm a sex and love addict. He's there to figure out why he'd hurt the woman he loves and learn how to actually commit to someone. The therapy sessions are led by Joan, who embodies everything Neil's been running from his entire life, a stern, judgmental mother figure. She doesn't see the men in her group as patients to heal, but as predatory animals to tame. Her method is to break them down, strip away their ego, make them feel the full crushing weight of their shame. She tells one guy, who spent over $100,000 on escorts, that he's reenacting the childhood trauma of abused women. She tells another that even looking at a woman with desire is, quote, covert sexualized violence. Her core philosophy, if you have true intimacy with your partner, you won't need anyone else. This becomes the heart of Neil's conflict in rehab. He challenges her. Using a blackboard, he draws out his logic. Let's say your wife is the best cook in the world, he tells the group. According to you, you'll never want to eat anywhere else. But that's just not true. Sometimes you want a different experience. He argues that for men, sex and intimacy aren't always the same thing. You can have deep intimacy with your partner, but still crave the novelty of different sexual experiences. His rebellion earns him admiration from the other men and contempt from Joan. As punishment, she orders him to present his timeline, his childhood story, to the group the next day. This is where everything shifts. To understand the man, you have to understand the child. Neil thought he had a normal childhood. But as he maps out his life on a long sheet of paper, a darker picture emerges. He describes a home ruled by his mother's paranoia and control. He was never given a house key. His friends were criticized. First dates were forbidden. He was grounded for months over minor things. His mother, unhappy in her marriage, made him her confidant. She told him things no child should hear about his father. Called him a monster, a selfish bastard. Said he could only perform sexually twice in their entire marriage. Once to conceive Neil, once to conceive his brother. Whatever you do, she warned him, never grow up to make anyone as miserable as your father makes me. He wasn't just her son. He was her surrogate spouse, her emotional partner. But there was something darker. As a teenager, searching for porn in his dad's closet, he found a VHS tape instead. What was on it changed everything. The tape showed wheelchair tennis, a movie scene of a woman in a wheelchair begging, a swimming race for people with no limbs, and finally, old footage of amputee models in bathing suits with missing legs. His father had a fetish for amputees, and his mother, who had a deformed leg, was the object of this fetish. This was the source of her misery, her shame, her hatred for her husband. She made Neil promise never to tell anyone. After Neil reveals this devastating secret to the group, the room goes silent. He's broken his promise to his mother, but in doing so, he's opened the door to healing. Another therapist, Lorraine, listens and offers an interpretation that hits him like a truck. The problem isn't just his father's addiction, she explains. It's his bond with his mother, the secrets they kept, the way they investigated his father together. Your mom wants to be in a relationship with you, Lorraine says. The room spins. Suddenly, his entire life makes terrible sense. Why his mother sabotaged his relationships. Why she never gave him a key. Why she cut him off when he moved in with his first girlfriend. Other women weren't good enough not because of them, but because he didn't choose her. When your mom is emotionally dependent on you and has intimate discussions with you that she should be having with her spouse, Lorraine concludes, there's a name for that. It's called emotional incest. Neil is shattered. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his family, himself, it's all a lie. His inability to commit to Ingrid, his compulsive need for new women, it's all a reaction to being suffocated by his mother's inappropriate love. He's been unconsciously replaying this drama his entire adult life, seeking freedom from an invisible cage. He's a love avoidant, terrified of intimacy because intimacy feels like being consumed. And Ingrid, she's the other half of this broken dance. When Neil explains his childhood during a rehab visit, she reveals her own story. Her father was a charismatic man who lived a double life with multiple families and girlfriends. One night, young Ingrid witnessed her father trying to murder her mother. She and her brother burst in and saved her. Her father simply said, "I'm waiting for my death to arrive." That was the last time she saw him. Ingrid was abandoned by her father. She's a love addict, drawn to unavailable men, hoping to finally win the love she never received as a child. Their dysfunctions meshed perfectly. His wounded inner child recognized hers. They were two broken puzzle pieces from different sets that happened to fit together, destined to repeat their parents' patterns. With this new understanding, Neil leaves rehab against medical advice. He has a diagnosis but not a cure. The journey's far from over. He tries applying what he's learned to his relationship with Ingrid. He tries being honest, present, building real intimacy. But the old patterns are strong. He finds himself fantasizing about other women, even during sex with Ingrid. He watches porn, sends a flirtatious text to an ex. The guilt and shame are crushing. His attempts to be a good partner feel like prison. The relationship, once joyful, becomes a constant source of tension and anxiety. He feels smothered. Ingrid, sensing his distance, becomes insecure and suspicious, which only pushes him further away. He faces a choice: keep fighting his nature, forcing himself into the monogamy box that feels like a coffin, or find another way. He chooses freedom. In a heartbreaking conversation in their spaceship room, surrounded by projected stars and galaxies, he tells Ingrid the truth. "I don't think it will ever feel right for me not to be with anyone else. For the rest of my life." Ingrid, with devastating strength, understands. "I feel like I caught a beautiful bird in the wild and put it in a cage, just for me to look at," she says through tears. "And I need to open the cage and let it go, because it belongs in the wild." Then she adds 6 words that will haunt him forever. "But birds die in the wild." So Neil is free, finally single, no rules, no expectations, no one to answer to. His quest for an alternative to monogamy begins. First stop, polyamory, the practice of having multiple loving relationships with everyone's consent. He meets Shama Helena, a witchy polygoddess in her 50s, who holds counseling sessions on a bed in her converted garage. She teaches him core concepts: compersion, the joy you feel when your partner is happy with another lover, and the critical importance of honesty and communication. She warns him the path to polyamory goes through uncomfortability. He'll have to face his jealousy head-on. He attends the World Polyamory Association conference at a nudist resort, expecting enlightened, evolved beings. Instead, he finds aging hippies, New Age mysticism, and a bizarre sexual ritual called a puja, where participants touch the source of your sacred energy, their genitals, and gaze lovingly at each other's lingams and yonis. he gets kicked out of the orgy for eating popcorn in the temple. The polyamory scene seems populated by people who believe in aliens and call themselves goddesses. Not his vibe. Next, swinging or the lifestyle. He meets Nicole, a beautiful, intelligent lawyer at a party. She's in an open relationship with her boyfriend James, but with rules. She can only sleep with other men if James is present. Their relationship turns out to be just as full of drama, jealousy, and broken rules as any monogamous one. They invite him to a Vegas swinger party called Bliss. It's a world of beautiful, confident people who found a way to keep long-term relationships exciting by sharing sexual adventures. But the night ends in disaster. After being given a cocktail of GHB and liquid Viagra, Neil passes out mid-foursome. He wakes up to discover he was snoring while a beautiful woman was going down on him. He's the orgy ruiner. Feeling like a failure at both monogamy and non-monogamy, he decides to create his own reality. He attempts to start a harem, inviting 3 women, Belle from Australia, Veronica from the Czech Republic, and Anne from France, to live with him in San Francisco for a 2-week experiment. It's a catastrophe. What he imagined as a free-spirited love den becomes a pressure cooker of jealousy, insecurity, and competition. The women fight over the front seat of his car. They argue about who gets to sleep with him. Anne, despite agreeing to the arrangement, falls deeply in love and becomes possessive. Neil ends up sleeping alone on the couch, playing referee between 3 miserable women. Instead of freedom, he's created a prison with 3 wardens. The experiment collapses. He explores other options: platonic co-parenting, a triad with 2 bisexual women. He even starts a full-blown love commune in a treehouse, which ends when a housemate's jealous boyfriend comes after him with an axe. Every path leads to more drama and trauma. He's exhausted, confused, more alone than ever. He's explored every alternative, and none has brought happiness. Then he gets the news that shatters his world completely. His friend Melanie shows him a photo online. It's Ingrid. She has a new boyfriend who looks like James Dean crossed with Thor. The safety net is gone. The fantasy that he could one day return to her is destroyed. He's hit absolute rock bottom. In despair, he turns again to Rick Rubin and Lorraine, the wise therapist from rehab. They sit with him at a restaurant, and Rick delivers the harshest truth of all. It's not relationships that are broken, he says, eyes blazing. It's you. Lorraine suggests the only path he hasn't tried: anhedonia, the dark place of not feeling, complete detox from intensity, from sex, from relationships, from women. He must empty himself completely. He agrees, changes his phone number, changes his email, blocks all social media, cuts off contact with every woman he's ever sexualized. He's truly alone, adrift in emptiness. The days are gray fog. He feels numb, dead inside. But in this emptiness, something begins to grow. He starts taking care of himself, surfs, eats well, meditates. He begins the painful work of reparenting himself, giving his inner child the love, acceptance, and security he never received. He looks at an old-school photo, an awkward 8-year-old with crooked teeth and oversized glasses, and feels a surge of love and sadness. He vows to protect that child. Slowly, the fog lifts. Color returns to the world. He starts feeling a peace he's never known. He realizes he's spent his entire life trying to fill a hole inside himself with external things: women, sex, adventure, intensity. But the only thing that can fill that hole is himself. He compiles all the lessons he's learned, calls it an incomplete guide to love for the incomplete man. He understands now why he cheated. Not just one reason, but many. Fear of being engulfed, unfulfilled sexual desires he was afraid to communicate, denial of personal responsibility, deep-seated feelings of worthlessness, and a faulty belief that humans are just animals driven by instinct. One day, while packing for his long-delayed trip to Machu Picchu, he finds a wedding invitation that arrived months ago, the one he thought was for Ingrid's wedding. He opens it again and realizes his mistake. It's not Ingrid's wedding, it's her brother's. He has one last chance. As he hikes the Inca Trail, surrounded by the breathtaking Andes, his mind is crystal clear. He thinks about a reporter who was kidnapped by rebels and, with a gun to his head, thought not of his wife but of his high school sweetheart. When rescued, he left his wife and married her. He was given a second chance and knew exactly what to do. Neil realizes that in his own moment of clarity, walking through the valley of Anhedonia, he thought only of Ingrid. All the other women, all the adventures, they were just distractions. Love is rare. He sends Ingrid a text, their secret emergency code word, freedom. Days pass with no reply. He starts to despair. Maybe he's too late, maybe she's moved on, maybe he doesn't deserve a second chance. But Ingrid's been on her own journey. She too has been learning to love herself, to be whole on her own. She sent him the invitation. She was hoping he'd come. At the wedding he sees her. She's more beautiful than he remembers. He's brought a box of gifts, symbols of his transformation. A key to the private beach where he surfs, a symbol of trust, a locket with photos of their inner children, a photo of a thriving plant she'd left him, called The Survivor. They talk, they cry, they begin to heal. The journey isn't over, it's just beginning. But for the first time, they're on the same path, walking together. A few months later, they perform a ritual. They bury a small coffin in the backyard. Inside is a tiny plastic elephant, the elephant in the room, their past of deceit and pain. They bury keys labeled secrets and memories. They're letting go of the past and choosing the present. The opposite of fear isn't joy, it's acceptance. And they've chosen to accept each other as they are, with all their wounds and all their beauty. Their commitment isn't to monogamy or non-monogamy. Their commitment is to each other, to honesty, and to nurturing their relationship, whatever form it takes. In the end, Neil Strauss discovers the most uncomfortable truth of all. Love isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person. And true freedom isn't the ability to have anyone you want. It's the ability to choose with your whole heart, to be with the one you love. What an incredible, raw, vulnerable journey when you strip away all the layers, the sex addiction, the orgies, the harems. What you find at the core is a universal human struggle. It's the battle between our desire for security and our hunger for freedom, between the comfort of commitment and the thrill of the unknown. For anyone navigating relationships, especially if you're just starting out, this book is like a secret map. It shows you all the dead ends, hidden traps, and dangerous territories people wander into when they're driven by unhealed wounds. The most powerful lesson is the idea of the wounded inner child. It's such a simple concept, but it explains so much about why we do what we do in relationships. Neil's fear of being smothered came from his mother. Ingrid's fear of abandonment came from her father. They were two adults playing out a script written for them in childhood. Until they became aware of that script, they were doomed to repeat it. Think about that. How much of what you look for in a partner, or how you behave in a relationship, is a reaction to your past? Are you seeking someone to fix you, complete you, or save you from loneliness? This book forces us to ask these tough questions. It shows us that a healthy relationship isn't about two halves making a whole. It's about two whole people choosing to share their lives. Another profound idea is the distinction Neil makes between pleasure and happiness. He spent years chasing pleasure, the short-term high of a new conquest, a new adventure, a new experience. He thought that was freedom, but it was its own cage, an endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. True happiness came from something quieter, something deeper. It came from self-acceptance, from intimacy, from commitment. Not commitment forced by rules, but commitment born of choice. So what can you take away today? First, get to know your own story. What are the patterns in your family? What messages did you receive about love, sex, and relationships? Understanding your past is the first step to not being controlled by it. Second, practice honesty, especially when it's uncomfortable. Neil's journey was fueled by secrets and lies. His healing began when he chose truth. A relationship built on truth, even difficult truth, is 100 times stronger than one built on convenient lies. And finally, remember that love is a skill. It's not something that just happens to you. It's something you build, nurture, and practice. It requires patience, compassion, and a willingness to look at your own flaws. That was a summary of The Truth by Neil Strauss. We've journeyed through the main ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of the Grand Canyon. It can show you the shape and colors, but it can't convey the feeling of standing on the edge, the sheer scale and majesty of it all. The real power of this book is in the details, in the raw honesty of Neil's voice, and in the quiet moments of reflection it inspires. If any part of this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt confused or lost in the world of relationships, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. It's more than a book. It's an experience that might just change the way you see love, and yourself, forever. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know these journeys are worth taking, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.